I was 31 when I died, and I thought I was living right. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and on March 14th, 2019, in a small hospital room in Riverside, my heart stopped for 17 minutes. What I saw in those 17 minutes changed everything I thought I knew about faith, about sin, and about the one habit that was slowly separating me from God without me even knowing it. Before we continue, close your eyes for 3 seconds and whisper the word light. If you feel something move inside, stay. The light still speaks. And what he showed me that day was meant for you too. I grew up in a normal home. We went to church on Sundays. We said grace before dinner. My mother had a small wooden cross hanging above the kitchen sink, and every morning the sunlight would catch it just right, throwing a golden shadow across the counter. I remember staring at that shadow while I ate my cereal, thinking about God in the abstract way children do, like he was somewhere far away, watching but not really present, not really here. My father worked at the hardware store downtown. He was a quiet man, the kind who showed love through fixing things rather than saying things. When the porch steps creaked, he'd spend his Saturday morning with a hammer and nails, humming an old hymn under his breath. I used to sit on the grass and watch him work, the smell of cut wood and oil filling the air, the sound of his humming mixing with the distant hum of lawnmowers and the laughter of children playing 2 houses down. It felt safe. It felt like enough. But somewhere between childhood and adulthood, that feeling faded. I don't know exactly when it happened. Maybe it was in college, when I stopped going to church because I was too busy. Maybe it was in my first job, when I learned that success meant putting yourself first. Or maybe it was just the slow, quiet erosion that happens when you stop paying attention, when you stop listening. I got married at 26 to a man named David. He was kind, steady, dependable. We had a small wedding in a chapel with white roses and too much lace. I remember standing at the altar, looking at him, thinking, this is it. This is the life I'm supposed to live. We bought a house with a blue door and a backyard that needed work. We talked about having children someday. We went to church on Christmas and Easter. We were good people. At least, that's what I told myself. But underneath the surface, something was wrong. I couldn't name it then, but I felt it. A restlessness. A quiet ache that lived in my chest like a stone I couldn't cough up. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, the house silent except for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs, and I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, feeling like I was waiting for something, like I was missing something. I prayed sometimes, short prayers, quick prayers. God, help me with this. God, give me that. God, make this easier. I never waited for an answer. I never sat in the silence long enough to hear one. I was too busy, too distracted, too convinced that I could handle it on my own. And then there was the habit. The one I didn't even realize was a habit. It was so small, so normal, so woven into the fabric of my daily life that I never questioned it. I never thought it mattered, but it did. And Jesus would show me exactly how much. It started with my phone. Every morning before I even got out of bed, I'd reach for it. The screen would light up my face in the dim room, and I'd scroll. Through news, through messages, through pictures of people I barely knew living lives that looked shinier than mine. I'd compare, I'd judge, I'd feel that little twist of envy or pride or irritation, and then I'd keep scrolling. Before I even said good morning to my husband, before I even thought about God, before I even acknowledged the gift of another day. My first thought, my first attention, my first devotion went to that little glowing rectangle. It sounds harmless, doesn't it? It sounds like nothing. But that nothing was everything. I didn't know it yet, but I was training my soul to look outward instead of inward, to seek validation instead of truth, to fill the silence with noise instead of letting God speak into it. I was feeding myself a constant stream of comparison, judgment, distraction, and superficiality, and it was starving the part of me that needed depth, that needed stillness, that needed Him. During the day, it continued. At red lights, I'd pull out my phone. In line at the grocery store, I'd pull out my phone. During dinner, I'd glance at it, just to check, just to see, just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. David would talk to me, and I'd nod, but my eyes would drift to the screen. My mother would call, and I'd half listen while scrolling through pictures of strangers' vacations. I was present in body, but absent in spirit. I was there, but not really there. And the worst part? I thought I was fine. I thought I was faithful. I went to church when it was convenient. I donated to charity. I said I believed in God. But my life, my attention, my heart was divided. I was giving God the leftovers of my focus, the scraps of my time, the shallow end of my devotion. And I didn't even realize it. I didn't realize I was building an altar to distraction. I didn't realize I was bowing down to it every single day. On the morning of March 14th, I woke up with a headache. It was dull and persistent, sitting right behind my eyes like a weight I couldn't shake. I reached for my phone anyway. The screen was too bright. I squinted and scrolled through the same feeds I always did, feeling that familiar emptiness grow a little wider. David was already up, making coffee in the kitchen. I could hear the soft clink of the spoon against the mug, the low hum of the morning news on the radio. I should have gone downstairs. I should have sat with him. But I stayed in bed, staring at the screen, watching other people's lives unfold in perfect little squares. The headache got worse. By noon, it felt like something was pressing against the inside of my skull. I took aspirin. I drank water. I ignored it. I had things to do, emails to answer, messages to send, a meeting at 2. I didn't have time to be sick, but my body had other plans. By 3 o'clock, the pain was unbearable. My vision blurred. My hands started to shake. David found me in the bathroom, sitting on the floor, unable to stand. He called an ambulance. I remember the sound of the sirens, distant at first, then closer, then so loud it felt like they were inside my head. I remember the paramedics lifting me onto the stretcher, the fluorescent lights of the hallway passing overhead in a bright, sickening blur. I remember David's face, pale and scared, his hand squeezing mine. And then I remember the hospital, the white walls, the beeping machines, the doctor's calm voice explaining something I couldn't quite understand. Aneurysm, surgery, risk. I signed papers I didn't read. I nodded at words I didn't process. And then they wheeled me into a room that smelled like disinfectant and fear. I don't remember the moment my heart stopped, but I remember what came after. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the absence of sound, but a silence so full, so thick, so alive that it felt like it was breathing. I was standing, but I wasn't on the ground. I was floating, but I wasn't falling. I looked down and saw my body on the table, surrounded by doctors and nurses moving in frantic, choreographed chaos. Their mouths were moving, but I heard nothing. I saw the monitors flatline. I saw David outside the room, his face buried in his hands. And I felt nothing, no panic, no fear. Just a strange, detached curiosity. Is that me? And then I turned away, because something else was pulling my attention. A light. Not the harsh fluorescent kind, but something warm, something golden, something that felt like home. It was distant at first, just a glow on the edge of my vision, but it grew. It expanded. It wrapped around me like a blanket, like arms, like love itself. And I moved toward it without thinking, without choosing, like a river flowing back to the ocean. The hospital dissolved. The room dissolved. Everything dissolved except the light. And then I was somewhere else. I was standing in a place that had no walls, no ceiling, no floor, but it felt more real than anything I'd ever known. The air was thick with presence, with peace, with something I can only describe as holiness. And then he was there. Jesus. I knew it was him before I saw him. I felt him before I heard him. He was standing in the light, but he was also the light. His face was gentle, his eyes were kind, but there was something in them that made me want to weep and laugh and fall to my knees all at once. He looked at me, and I felt seen, not judged, not condemned, just seen, fully, completely, for the first time in my life. He didn't speak with words at first. He just held my gaze, and in that gaze, I felt everything. The love I'd been searching for, the peace I'd been chasing, the wholeness I'd been missing. It was all there, radiating from him, filling every empty space inside me I didn't even know existed. And then he spoke. His voice was soft, but it filled everything. It didn't echo. It didn't fade. It just was. Sarah. That was all he said. Just my name. But the way he said it made me realize I'd never really heard my name before. Not like that. Not with that much weight, that much care, that much knowledge of who I really was beneath all the masks and roles and pretenses. I tried to speak, but I couldn't find words. I tried to move, but I didn't need to. He came closer, and the light around him grew brighter, but it didn't hurt my eyes. It warmed me. It held me. He reached out, and I felt his presence wrap around me like a blanket I'd been missing my whole life. "Do you know why you're here?" he asked. I shook my head. I didn't know. I didn't understand. I thought I'd been doing fine. I thought I'd been living the way I was supposed to. But standing there in front of him, I realized how blind I'd been, how far I'd drifted, how little I'd actually known him. He smiled, but it was a sad smile, the kind that breaks your heart because it's full of love and disappointment all at once. "I want to show you something," he said. And then everything shifted. The light around us changed, and I was no longer standing in that timeless, placeless space. I was back in my bedroom, but I wasn't in my body. I was watching myself. I saw myself reach for my phone the moment I woke up. I saw the way my face looked in the blue glow of the screen. Tired, empty, hungry for something that screen could never give me. I saw myself scroll and scroll and scroll, filling my mind with noise, with comparison, with judgment, with everything except him. And I felt something twist inside me, shame. Not because he was shaming me, but because I finally saw what I'd been doing. I saw how I'd been starting every single day by feeding my soul poison, by giving my first attention, my first thought, my first moment to something that had no life in it. Jesus stood beside me, watching with me. "This is the habit," he said quietly. "This is the thing that has been separating you from me. Not because I condemned it, but because you chose it over me. Every single morning, you chose distraction over devotion. You chose noise over my voice. You chose the world's validation over my love." I wanted to argue. I wanted to say it wasn't that serious. It was just a phone. Just a few minutes. Just something everyone did. But I couldn't. Because standing there, seeing it from his perspective, I realized how much time I'd spent looking down instead of looking up. How many mornings I'd ignored his presence because I was too busy checking messages. How many moments of stillness I'd filled with scrolling because I was afraid of the silence. Afraid of what I might hear if I actually listened. Afraid of what I might feel if I actually let myself be still. The scene shifted again. I saw myself at the dinner table with David. I saw the way I only half listened to him while my phone sat next to my plate, buzzing, glowing, pulling my attention away. I saw the hurt in his eyes that I'd never noticed before, the loneliness. I saw myself at church, checking my phone during the sermon, my mind wandering to comments and likes and messages instead of the word being spoken. I saw myself lying in bed at night, scrolling until my eyes burned, filling the space that should have been prayer with images and words that meant nothing. And then Jesus spoke again. "You were never fully present," he said. "Not with your husband, not with your friends, not with me. You were always somewhere else. Always chasing something you already had. Always hungry for something I was offering you freely, but you couldn't receive it because your hands were full. Your attention was divided. Your heart was split." I felt tears streaming down my face, though I didn't have a body. I felt the weight of every wasted moment, every ignored whisper, every time I'd chosen the temporary over the eternal. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I didn't know. I didn't realize. He looked at me with those impossibly kind eyes. I know, he said. That's why I'm showing you now. Because this habit, this small, silent habit, is condemning millions. Not because I condemn them, but because it's stealing their peace. It's stealing their presence. It's stealing their ability to hear me. They think it's harmless. They think it doesn't matter. But every time they choose distraction over devotion, they're building a wall between us. One scroll at a time, one notification at a time, one moment at a time. And eventually, the wall becomes so high they forget I'm on the other side. He gestured, and I saw them. Millions of people all over the world waking up and reaching for their phones, feeding their souls noise instead of nourishment, comparing themselves to others instead of resting in His love, seeking affirmation from strangers instead of finding their identity in Him. I saw marriages crumbling because no one was fully present. I saw children growing up feeling unseen because their parents were always looking at screens. I saw people sitting in churches, Bibles open, but minds elsewhere. I saw the loneliness, the anxiety, the depression, the emptiness. All of it fed by the same habit, the same quiet, relentless turning away from the one who loved them most. It's not the technology, Jesus said softly. It's the choice. It's what you do with it. It's whether you use it as a tool or let it use you. It's whether you let it serve your life or whether you serve it. And most people, Sarah, don't even realize they're serving it. They don't realize they've made it their God. They don't realize they're bowing down to it every single day. The vision faded, and I was back in that timeless space, standing before Him. I felt broken, exposed, but also strangely free. Because for the first time, I understood. I understood what had been stealing my peace. What had been keeping me from truly knowing Him. What had been draining the life out of my relationships, my faith, my soul. It wasn't something big or dramatic. It wasn't some terrible sin I could point to and confess. It was small. It was silent. It was so normal that no one even talked about it. But it was killing me, slowly, quietly, one moment at a time. What do I do? I asked Him. How do I change? He reached out and placed His hand over my heart. I felt warmth flood through me, like light pouring into every dark corner I'd been hiding. You start by choosing me first, He said, every morning, before you reach for anything else, before you fill your mind with the world's noise. You choose stillness. You choose prayer. You choose to remember that I am here, that I am real, that I love you more than any like, any comment, any fleeting validation ever could. You make me your first thought, and everything else will follow. I nodded, tears still streaming. I wanted to stay there forever. I wanted to live in that light, in that presence, in that overwhelming sense of being loved and known. But He shook His head gently, reading my thoughts. It's not your time yet, He said. You're going back. And when you do, you're going to live differently. You're going to be present. You're going to choose depth over distraction. You're going to teach others what I've shown you, because they need to know, Sarah. They need to know that this habit is stealing their lives. And they need to know that I'm waiting. I'm always waiting. But I won't force myself into a heart that's too full of noise to hear me. Before I could respond, the light intensified. It grew so bright, so warm, so overwhelming that I felt myself dissolving into it. And then, like a wave crashing over me, I felt pain, sharp, searing, unbearable pain. I gasped, and my eyes flew open. The hospital room came rushing back. The beeping machines, the sterile smell, the bright lights. David's face above mine, tears streaming down his cheeks, his mouth forming words I couldn't quite hear yet. "You're back," someone was saying. "You're back. Welcome back." But I wasn't the same. I could feel it immediately. Something inside me had shifted. Something had been rearranged. The world looked different, sharper, clearer, more real. I looked at David, really looked at him, and I saw him. Not the version of him I'd been half paying attention to for years, but him. The man who'd loved me, who'd stayed, who'd held my hand while I died. I reached up and touched his face, and he broke down, pulling me close, sobbing into my shoulder. "I'm here," I whispered. "I'm really here." And I meant it. For the first time in years, I was fully present, fully awake, fully alive. The recovery was long. Weeks in the hospital, then months of physical therapy, relearning how to move, how to think, how to exist in a body that had betrayed me. But the hardest part wasn't physical. It was spiritual. It was learning how to live differently, how to break the habit that had ruled me for so long. The first morning I was home, I woke up and my hand moved automatically toward my phone. But I stopped. I remembered his words. I remembered the light. I remembered the sadness in his eyes when he showed me what I'd been choosing. I pulled my hand back and closed my eyes instead. "Jesus," I whispered. "You first." That's all I said. Just 2 words, but I felt him there. I felt his presence, warm and real, filling the quiet morning air. I felt peace, the kind I hadn't felt in years, and I realized I'd been starving for this. For him. For the stillness. For the connection. I'd been filling myself with junk food for my soul, and I hadn't even known I was hungry for something real. I started setting my phone in another room at night. I started my mornings with prayer instead of scrolling. I started having breakfast with David without any screens, just conversation, just presence, just us. I started noticing things I'd missed before. The way the light came through the kitchen window in the morning, the sound of birds outside, the texture of the coffee mug in my hands, the warmth of David's laugh. I started going to church not out of obligation, but out of hunger. I wanted to hear the word. I wanted to worship. I wanted to be in a place where I could focus on him without distraction. People noticed. My friends asked what had changed. My mother said I seemed lighter, more at peace. David said he felt like he had his wife back. But the hardest part was explaining it. How do you tell people that a habit they think is harmless is actually destroying them? How do you tell them that their phones, their constant scrolling, their need for distraction is a form of idolatry? How do you say that without sounding judgmental or self-righteous? I struggled with it for months. I prayed about it. I asked Jesus to show me how to share what he'd shown me without pushing people away. And slowly, he did. I started small. I started sharing my story. I told people about my NDE, about what I saw, about what Jesus revealed. Some people listened. Some people dismissed it. But a few, a precious few, heard the truth in it. They recognized themselves in my story. They saw the habit in their own lives. And they started to change. I met a woman named Grace at a Bible study. She was young, maybe 25, and she seemed perpetually exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, shoulders hunched, always checking her phone. We talked after the study one night, and I asked her gently if she was okay. She broke down. She told me she couldn't sleep. She couldn't focus. She felt anxious all the time, like she was missing something, like she wasn't enough. She spent hours every night scrolling through social media, comparing herself to others, feeling worse and worse, but unable to stop. I told her what Jesus had shown me. I told her about the habit, about the choice, about how distraction was stealing her peace. And I told her she could change it. One morning at a time, one choice at a time. She cried, and then she asked me to pray with her. We sat there in the church parking lot, under the dim glow of a street light, and I prayed that Jesus would give her the strength to choose him first, to choose stillness over noise, to choose presence over distraction. A month later, she texted me. She said she'd been starting her mornings with prayer. She said she felt lighter. She said she was sleeping better. She said she felt like she was finally hearing God's voice again. That's when I realized this was my purpose. This was why Jesus sent me back, not just to change my own life, but to help others change theirs, to warn them, to show them that this habit, This silent, insidious habit is a thief. It steals peace. It steals presence. It steals intimacy with God. And most people don't even realize it's happening until they're too numb to feel anything anymore. I started speaking at churches. Small gatherings at first, then bigger ones. I shared my story over and over, watching faces in the audience recognize themselves in my words. I saw people cry. I saw people nod. I saw people pull out their phones right there in the room and turn them off. One man came up to me after a talk, tears streaming down his face. He said he'd been struggling with depression for years. He said he felt so disconnected from everything, from his wife, from his kids, from God. He said he spent every spare moment on his phone, numbing himself with videos and news and endless scrolling. He said he didn't realize he was doing it until I spoke. He said he felt like Jesus had sent me to wake him up. We prayed together, and I felt the Holy Spirit move in that moment. I felt Jesus there, the same way I'd felt him in the light. And I knew this was exactly where I was supposed to be. But not everyone received the message well. Some people got defensive. They said I was being too extreme, too judgmental, too old-fashioned. They said technology wasn't the problem, people were. And they were right in a way. Technology isn't the enemy, but the way we use it can be. The way we let it rule our attention, our time, our hearts can become a form of worship. And when we worship anything other than God, we lose ourselves. I learned to speak with grace. I learned to share without condemning. I learned to say, I'm not telling you to throw away your phone. I'm telling you to be intentional with it. I'm telling you to make sure it's serving your life, not stealing it. I'm telling you that Jesus wants your first attention, not your leftovers, not your scraps, your first, and everything else will fall into place. There were hard days when I doubted myself, when I wondered if I was making a difference, when I felt overwhelmed by how many people were trapped in the same cycle I'd been in. But every time I felt that way, I'd close my eyes and remember. I'd remember the light. I'd remember his voice. I'd remember the way he looked at me with such love, such sadness, such hope. And I'd keep going. One night, about 2 years after my NDE, I was lying in bed, David asleep beside me. The house was quiet. The street outside was silent. And I felt it again. That presence, that warmth, that sense of not being alone. I closed my eyes and whispered, Jesus? And I felt him there. Not visibly, not audibly, but unmistakably. I felt his peace, his love, his approval. And I heard, not with my ears, but with my spirit, the softest whisper. You're doing well, daughter. Keep going. Keep telling them. Keep waking them up. I'm with you. I cried that night. Not from sadness, but from gratitude. From overwhelming, uncontainable gratitude that he'd given me a second chance, that he'd shown me the truth, that he'd chosen me to carry this message. I didn't deserve it. I didn't earn it. But he gave it to me anyway, because that's who he is. That's what he does. He takes broken, distracted, half-present people like me and he transforms them. He shows them the truth, and he sends them back to help others find it too. For a long moment, I lay there in the quiet between heaven and earth, listening to David breathe beside me, feeling the weight of the blankets, smelling the faint scent of lavender from the diffuser on the nightstand, being fully present in that moment, in that gift, in that life I'd been given back. And I realized this was the whole point, this presence, this attention, this choosing to be here, fully here, with the people I love and the God who loves me. This was what he'd been trying to teach me all along, that heaven isn't just a place we go when we die. It's a state of being we can enter right now, in this moment, when we choose him, when we choose stillness, when we choose to see the sacred in the ordinary and the divine in the mundane, when we put down the distractions and pick up his presence. I want you to know something. If you're reading this, if you've made it this far, it's not an accident. Jesus wants you to hear this. He wants you to know that he sees you. He sees the way you reach for your phone the moment you wake up. He sees the way you scroll through the pain, trying to numb it instead of heal it. He sees the way you're half present in your own life, always distracted, always elsewhere, always chasing something that will never satisfy you. And he's not angry. He's not condemning you. He's just sad. Because he knows what you're missing. He knows the peace you could have, the presence you could experience, the intimacy you could share with him and with the people you love. And he's waiting. He's always waiting. But he won't force you. He'll never force you. The choice is yours. You can keep living the way you've been living. You can keep starting your days with distraction. You can keep feeding your soul noise and wondering why you feel so empty. Or you can choose differently. You can choose him first. You can put down the phone. You can sit in the stillness. You can whisper his name and wait, really wait, for him to answer. And he will. I promise you, he will. Because he's been there all along. You've just been too busy to notice. I'm not perfect. I still struggle sometimes. There are still mornings when my hand moves toward my phone before I remember. There are still moments when I catch myself scrolling mindlessly, falling back into the old pattern. But the difference now is that I recognize it. I see it for what it is. And I can choose to stop. I can choose to redirect my attention. I can choose him again, and again, and again. That's all he asks. Not perfection, just intention, just the willingness to try, just the desire to know him more than you desire comfort, distraction, or validation from the world. This habit, this silent habit of constant distraction, of giving our attention to everything except God, is condemning millions. Not because God is condemning them, but because they're missing the very thing they were created for. They're missing connection, presence, peace, love, him. And they don't even realize what they're missing because they've never experienced anything different. They've never sat in the stillness long enough to hear his voice. They've never put down the noise long enough to feel his presence. They've never chosen him first long enough to realize that he's everything they've been searching for in all the wrong places. So I'm asking you right now, in this moment, to make a choice. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, don't reach for your phone. Reach for him. Whisper his name. Say, Jesus, you first. And then wait. Sit in the silence. Let him fill it. Let him speak. Let him love you the way he's been trying to love you all along. It might feel awkward at first. It might feel uncomfortable. You might feel like you're doing it wrong, but stay with it. Keep choosing, keep showing up, and watch what happens. Watch how your life begins to change. Watch how your relationships deepen. Watch how your peace grows. Watch how you start to feel alive again, really alive, in a way you haven't felt in years. This message isn't just about phones. It's about anything we put before God, anything we give our first attention to, anything we worship in place of him. For some people, it's their phone. For others, it's work, or success, or relationships, or money, or comfort. The specific idol doesn't matter. What matters is that we recognize it. What matters is that we see how it's stealing our lives, our peace, our connection with the one who made us. And what matters is that we choose differently. Jesus showed me this because he wanted me to tell you. He wanted you to know that he's not far away. He's not distant. He's not silent. He's right here, right now, waiting for you to turn toward him, waiting for you to give him your first attention, your first thought, your first moment, waiting for you to choose him over the noise. I don't know where you are right now. I don't know what you're struggling with. I don't know how deep the habit has taken root in your life. But I know this. It's not too late. It's never too late. Jesus is still speaking. The light is still waiting. And the moment you choose him, everything changes. If this story awakened something in you, if you felt that stir in your spirit, that whisper that said, "This is for me," then I want you to do something. Not for me, not for anyone else, but for yourself. Write true faith in the comments below. Not because it's magic, not because it will save you, but because it's an act of recognition. It's you saying, I see it, I understand, I want to choose differently. It's you planting a flag in the ground and saying, today is the day I start choosing him first. And when you write those words, say a prayer. Ask Jesus to help you. Ask him to give you the strength to break the habit. Ask him to fill the silence with his presence. Ask him to show you what it means to really know him, not just know about him. And then, tomorrow morning, do it. Put the phone in another room. Sit in the stillness, whisper his name, and wait. Just wait. He'll meet you there. I promise you, he'll meet you there. Because he's been waiting for you all along, not with condemnation, not with judgment, but with love, with arms wide open, with a peace that surpasses all understanding, with everything you've been searching for in all the wrong places. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I died for 17 minutes. And in those 17 minutes, Jesus showed me the truth about the habit that's silently condemning millions, the habit of distraction, the habit of divided attention, the habit of giving our lives to everything except him. But he also showed me the way out. He showed me that it's simple. It's a choice. One choice, one morning, one moment at a time. Choose him first. Everything else will follow. The light is still waiting. He's still speaking. And if you're hearing this, it's because he wants you to know it's not too late. It's never too late. Come back. Come home. He's been waiting for you, and he always will be.